y'all, let's take a look at solving by factoring. We're going to jump right in with the first step, and the first step is to get your equation set equal to 0. So right now it's equal to -6. So the first thing we need to do is add 6 to both sides of the equation. So I'm going to bring this down. 20x squared plus 32x. -90 plus 6 is -84. And -6 plus 6 is 0. That's the reason we added 6, was to make this side 0. So that part's good. That's step 1 finished. Step 2 is to find the GCF. So to find the GCF, I need to get these three numbers, 20, 32, and 84. And I'm not going to pay attention to the signs right now. It's okay that that's not written as a negative. I'm just looking at the numbers and figuring out what's the biggest number that'll go into all three of these. This is a hard step for a lot of people, so don't worry if that part's bothering you. Let's go through a process that hopefully will make it simpler. Subscribe to Algebra student, because I want you to see that you can still hate math, you just don't have to be bad at math. I'm going to draw an upside down division sign, and I'm looking for what numbers will go into these numbers without a fraction or a decimal, no remainder, that kind of thing. So first things first, they're all even. So I know they'll all divide by 2. So 20 divided by 2 is 10, 32 divided by 2, and 84 divided by 2. Okay, so that makes the numbers a little smaller. So I'm looking again, are they still even? And they are. So I'm going to divide them by 2 again. That leaves me with 5, 8, and 21. Alright, so now I'm looking at these numbers. They're not even. And 5 and 8, to me, looking at the smaller numbers lots of times will help. If I type in 5 over 8 in my calculator and hit enter, it leaves it 5 over 8 because it can't reduce anymore. That means there's no GCF for these two. If there's not one for these two, then there's definitely not one for all three. So that means that my GCF comes from these two things. GCF is going to be 2 times 2 because there were 2 2's. So my GCF is 4. So there's my step 2, is to divide every piece of the equation by 4. Alright, so that leaves me 5x squared plus 8x minus 21 equals 0. And notice that those three numbers match these three numbers here. That helps you to know that you're on track. That's a good sign when you see that. Alright, the next step is to take this standard form equation, and when I just say standard form, I just mean it's in this format, equal to 0, which we did. Ax squared means your x squared has this number in front, that's a, plus bx, there's bx, b is 8, plus c, c is a -21. And your next step is to multiply a times c. So for us, that's 5 times -21. Which is -105. Now, on this calculator, I can go to table, and it's already in here, but I'll pretend it's not. Table, hit clear, and so it says y equals, and I'm going to type -105 over x, and the x button is right beside the 4. And you hit enter a bunch of times until you get to this table. And so on this table, it says x and y, and so you're looking for factors that will add up to give you a positive 8, because you're looking for factors that add up to give you that b term. Alright, so when I look through here, I notice here's -5 and 21, and here's -7 and 15. So you're just scrolling up and down till you see things. If you see a fraction on the right side, then don't look at it. It's not a factor if it's a fraction. Fractions are not factors. It's a good thing to know. Alright, so now I'll write those two down just to kind of help us think through. I'm looking for one that adds up to be 8. Well, these are positives. So 21 minus 5, that's -16. That's not a positive 8, so that's not it. -7 plus 15, that's 8. That's what I'm looking for. So these are the numbers I'm going to use. So now I'll go back to the problem. Bring down your 5x squared again. And you've got -7 and plus 15. Instead of writing plus 8, we're going to split it into these two pieces of a -7x and a positive 15x. It doesn't matter which order you write them in. If I put 15x minus 7x, that's fine. Because either way, it adds up to positive 8x, so it'll work either way. And then bring down the negative 21, or the minus 21. You don't have to have the equal 0 at this point, as long as you remember to solve at the end, and I'll show you that step. Alright, so next thing, draw a line down the middle. So divide the 4 terms into 2 and 2. So here's 2 terms, here's 2 terms. All you're going to do now is find the GCF for the left side and divide it out. So 5 and 7. If I type in 5 over 7 here, it doesn't reduce because there's not a GCF, but they both have an x. So I'm going to divide out x here and x here. And that leaves me with still 5. I had 2 x's on top and I took 1 away, so it leaves me with 1 x on the bottom. And minus 7, and then I had an x and I took 1 away, so those essentially cancel out. Alright, over here, 15 and 21, the GCF there is 3, and there's no x in common. This has an x, but this doesn't, so I'm only dividing out a 3. And 3 goes into 15 5 times, and negative 21 divided by 3 is negative 7. Notice something, those are the same. They should always be the same or you've messed up. I love this method because it tells me if I've messed up now. I don't have to wait until later. I can go ahead and know, ooh, I need to go back and look at this step, and if that looks good, I need to look at this step, and you know, I can just kind of back up and find my mistake. Alright, we're almost there. Let's take these and write them as factors. So I'm going to take the front of each of the parentheses and write that as one factor. So I've got x plus 3 as one factor. And then the one that's the same inside the parentheses is the other factor. So those are my 2 factors. And if this just said factor the quadratic term or factor the polynomial or something like that, if it just said factor, then I would be finished. That would be my answer. But because it says solve and we had it equal to 0, then we just have to do this one extra step. It's not bad. X plus 3 and 5x minus 7. And you're just going to set them equal to 0 and solve. So if it's x plus 3, then x is a negative 3. And if it's 5x minus 7, we're going to add 7 and divide by 5. And just leave it as a fraction. So my answer for all of this is that my 2 solutions are negative 3 and 7 over 5. And that's solving by factoring.